Okay, let's turn to the book of Numbers, chapter 23. Numbers 23, 24 deal with a man named Balaam. Begins chapter 22, but his prophecies begin in chapter 23. And Balaam's reputation was, whomsoever Balaam blesses will be blessed, whomsoever he curses will be cursed. As the king of Moab hired Balaam to curse the Jews. And so 4 different times he takes him on different high mountain points that could look down upon the Jewish encampment. All 4 times he opens his mouth to curse the Jews. All 4 times God takes over his tongue, he ends up blessing the Jews instead. In these 4 blessings, he issues a number of prophecies. One will be in particular, but let me summarize each of the first 4 prophecies. The first oracle is in Numbers chapter 23, verses 7 through 10. 7 through 10. And he points out 3 things. Israel will be a nation, though not always recognized as such. Secondly, he prophesies the increase of Israel numerically. But thirdly, he points out God's blessing for Israel is something Balaam would desire for himself. The second oracle is in chapter 23, verses 18 to 24. 18 to 24, here he points out 2 things. The future sinlessness of Israel. And secondly, at that time, God will be in the midst of Israel as their king. The third oracle is Numbers chapter 24, verses 3 through 9. Here he also points out 2 things. First of all, the future condition of Israel, and secondly, the future condition of her messianic king. Now we come to the 4th prophecy, which has something relevant to the first coming in verses 15 through 24. 15 to 24. And the key verse is verse 17. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not nigh. There shall come forth a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall arise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and break down all the sons of tumult. In this specific prophecy, he prophesies of a star arising out of Jacob, and he also couples the star with a scepter, and the scepter is just a symbol for king, and so the star is a king. So he points out there will be a king arising from among the Jewish people. Now this has implications centuries later in dealing with Matthew chapter 2. In Matthew chapter 2, you have a number of wise men coming from the east, from the area of Babylonia, to Jerusalem, asking the question, where is he that is born the King of the Jews? Now these are Gentiles, and the wise men is a term that refers to people who practiced astrology. So you have an unknown number of Babylonian astrologers arriving at Jerusalem, asking the question, where is he that is born the King of the Jews? And this raises several questions. Being Gentiles and Babylonians, why would they want to come to worship a Jewish king? Why would they even know about a Jewish king? Now, the book of Daniel becomes key here because the book of Daniel contains the only prophecy that gives a timetable for the first coming. And so many parts of the Hebrew Bible provide the prophecies about the first coming. Only Daniel provides a timetable in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 through 27. And as you go work yourself through the book of Daniel, you'll discover 2 things which are relevant to what's happening in Matthew chapter 2. First of all, Daniel became the head of the Babylonian school of astrology, not because he ever practiced it. As a loyal Jew to the Torah, the law, he would not fall into astrology. Became the head only because of a lack of spirituality by Nebuchadnezzar. When Nebuchadnezzar noticed Daniel having this ability to interpret dreams and solve riddles, he made the assumption that Daniel was a superior astrologer, made him the head of the whole school. But the book of Daniel shows Daniel never received any information from the stars or astrology. He received this information directly from God himself, the creator of the stars. A second thing relevant is that one day Daniel saved the lives of all the other wise men, because when they could not interpret a dream Nebuchadnezzar had, he sentenced all of them to be executed. And among the ones to be executed included Daniel, because from the Babylonian perspective, he was associated with that school. But Babylon requested an audience with the king, which he received. He did interpret the dream, and by so doing, he saved the lives of all the others. And no question that some of those, if not many of those, then turned away from the worship of the stars and began worshiping the creator of the stars, the God of Israel. And they had in their possession a book written by the former president that gave a timetable for the first coming. And so when they saw this new light in the heavens, they took that to be the light, took that to be the sign that the Messianic King has finally been born. However, Daniel himself never connected the Messiah with a star, but Balaam did. And by the way, Balaam's profession was also astrology. And he also came from a section in Babylonia. And what we know from Babylonian records is that they kept historical records, and that included Balaam's prophecy. And he's the one that connected the Messiah with a star. So from the Balaam connection and the star, and Daniel's connection of the timing of the first coming, when they saw this light in the heavens, they took that to be the sign the Messiah was born. Now keep in mind, in those days, astrology and astronomy were not separate disciplines. If you study one, you study the other. So if anyone would notice a new light in the heavens, it would be these men, because they're also astronomers, and therefore they would be the first ones to recognize a new light in the heavens. And that's why they took that to be a sign and came to Jerusalem. And so again, this prophecy also points to the fact that the Messiah will be a king. Let's go to one more passage in the Torah, which is going to be the fifth book of Moses, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18. Deuteronomy chapter 18. And look at verse 15, Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. Chapter 18, verse 15. Jehovah your God will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren, like unto me, unto him you shall hearken. According to all your true desire of Jehovah, your God in Horeb, in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Jehovah my God, neither let me see the great fire any more, that I die not. And Jehovah said unto me, they have well said that which they have spoken. I raise up to them a prophet from among their brethren, like unto you. Now put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I have commanded them. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken to my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require of him. Now what we learn here is that Messiah will also be a prophet, but more specifically, a prophet like unto Moses. Now what way was the prophetic Moses distinct from all the other prophets? Turn back to Numbers chapter 12. Numbers chapter 12. It's a chapter where Moses married a Cushite. He married a black woman, and his brother and sister took offense to it and then claimed to be prophets themselves. And that led to God's response. Okay, Numbers 12, verse 4. And Jehovah spoke suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and to Miriam, come ye three out unto the tent of meeting. And the three came out. And Jehovah came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the door of the tent. And he called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Jehovah, will make myself known unto him in a vision. I will speak with him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so. He is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even manifestly, and not in dark sentences. And the form of Jehovah shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant, against Moses? And the unique thing about the prophetic office of Moses is that when Moses spoke face to face, mouth to mouth, always in some visible form or another. With other prophets, he will speak in different forms, but not the same way. However, someday there will become a prophet like unto Moses, with whom God also will speak mouth to mouth, face to face, in visible form, and that will be the Messianic King. And so what we learn from this passage, that the Messiah is going to be a prophet. The Messiah will be a prophet. Now, these are all the passages as far as about the Messiah relevant to his first coming. So what if all we have was the 5 books of Moses? The time of Joshua, that was the whole Bible at that stage. But how much can we deduct about the Messiah from these 5 books? First of all, there is the concept of the seed. It's been delivered in 3 facets. First of all, the seed of the woman, meaning it was come out of humanity. Secondly, the seed of Abraham, out of Jewish humanity. And the seed of Judah, he'll come from the tribe of Judah. Secondly, as Eve understood, he would be both God and man. He would be the God-man. Thirdly, he will have the office of king, and fourthly, the office of a prophet. And fifthly, he'll remove the Adamic curse. And then finally, there is a hint of the virgin birth. It's not clear stated yet. But the whole concept of the seed of the woman again contradicts all of the other genealogies. So Messiah will be different. It just hints at the virgin birth. It won't become clear until Isaiah chapter 7.